Hello and welcome back. Apologies it's taken so long. We had a lovely baby.
Oh.
And we moved house and I had some gigs over summer. And as you can see, well, maybe I am still setting up the studio and it's taking a long time. Everything takes much longer with a baby. Anyway, I thought we'd continue with our Sampling the World Around Us series. In the last video, we took some field recordings and then we processed them using kind of random generation of ideas and also more focused ideas to really sculpt the sounds. So I thought we'd take those recordings and sounds and then try to make a piece of music with them. And this time I thought we would focus more on performance-based ideas and performative motion in Ableton Live, kind of using it more as an instrument to breathe some life into what might otherwise be quite repetitive music, to be honest. So we're using this Novation launch control, but I'm going to put it sideways to use these faders more as crossfaders, kind of inspired by the Octatrack. So, and I have to say it is a bit boring, but if you do like the channel, please hit the like button and subscribe. It will help. Okay, let's get started. So we've got our launch control on the side. We've got our kick drum is made up of 3 parts, and we're using this crossfader here to drastically change it. And what's going on here is I wanted to create a kind of release or breakdown option which keeps the energy rolling. So basically we've got drum bus, and we've got 2 instances on 2 different chains here, and we're basically just crossfading between them, so nothing complicated. And then on one of these we're listening just to the boom effect. So there it is turned off, where we're listening to the whole effect, and here just the boom. Which creates this really nice fuzz. So here is the harder kick on the left side. Okay, otherwise we've got some percussion. And using these 2 buttons to mute them. Okay. On the bass, we've got kind of subtle low pass where we're tuning the low pass. And then here on our leads, so this pot here is controlling the makeup gain on this compressor, the glue compressor, which just adds some drama. On the other lead, we've got this pot is controlling the amount of feedback on raw. It's on a dotted pattern, which adds also a nice rhythmic variation to the sound and also some more drama, which I liked. And this pot is sending across to our effects channel here. So it's sending a bit of percussion as well as the leads. So let's have a listen. Okay, so this pot is sending to our effects. This is controlling a little bit of the size of our reverb and also this shift effect, basically just creating kind of wonky motion. So with the fader in the middle, it's about the default position. And then finally, this top fader is controlling a gate on the effects return. So it's basically taming the reverb. All the way over to the left here, the gate floor comes down, and all the way to the right, it's fully open. So when the fader is to the left, it's a bit more tame. And finally, on the master bus, we've also got a high pass. And also TDR's Nova, and I'm using it in a mid-side mode. So using Voxengo's MSED, which is also a free plugin, a kind of mid-side encoder decoder converting stereo to mid-side. So I've got one where the mid is muted and one where the side is muted. And then I've got two different instances of TDR's Nova. And this is basically just to tame the sides in particular and also a bit of processing on the mid. So some very basic mastering just to tame things a bit, also with saturate on the side. So I'll let you listen with it on and then off. So it is a bit quieter with it on because it's cutting out quite a bit in the sides, but it's also neater. It is taming things a bit. And I didn't mention it before, but I've also got mini meters at the top here, adding some eye candy, but also actually adding some useful information. So I'll put a link to that somewhere. And that is basically it. It is again using all the field recordings we made last time. And in terms of the arrangement, I would like to, I'm thinking kind of a 4x4 intro, kind of more 4 to the floor. And then I want to go into this wonkier part. So I'll play some of that as well. So with this, we have got, so these are our rolling percussion, and I'm just using the follow-on actions, the follow action. So under launch here, I've got follow action here. It's now playing, he'll play any clip and then go back to the first one. So any clip 74% of the time, and then back to the first clip about 1/4 of the time. Okay, so we're back. I wanted to add a few more details. So looking at this kick channel, I've expanded a bit on the drum bus effect. I've got the two duplicated chains. I'm using this crossfader to go between them. And another thing which I haven't yet mapped is I've got, well, one thing is I quite like the way it sounds. So I've made a snapshot. I've mapped various parameters to these macros using map. And then you Command Option B, open the browser. And we can see, by coloring these, we can see quite clearly where they are. And I have, for example, on this frequency, the boom frequency applied to both chains, this here, I've mapped that in a way so that it goes from F to F. So F 43.7 Hertz up to 87.3. So going from F in one octave, the lower octave, F0, up to F1. So we can see that. And then I like the way it sounded, so I made a snapshot. And you do that quite simply by, let's say, new. And now I've got a new snapshot. If I go back to this one, there we are. So I've used that just to keep a bookmark of the way I liked it. And we can play around with the kick. So that's one thing I want to talk about, basically coloring macros, and then by opening the browser, Command Option B, when you map your macros, you can dial in, you can tune them, you can tune the macros to make them more precise or within the ranges that you want. So that is one thing I want to talk about. Another thing is, so in creating this video, I've got this faux main where I'm routing all the audio, to the faux main, the ones that I'm using. So faux main, etc. So it's a fake main bus where I've got this compressor, which is side chaining to create this ducking effect. Okay, so when I speak, it automatically ducks the audio and my voice comes through a bit clearer. In doing this, I've noticed that if I solo this effect return or any of the effect returns, it has this unusual effect where it doesn't fully solo them, but because my kick channel, I've got these three different kicks, different layers, which would be triggered by one MIDI channel. And if I don't solo this along with the audio channels, it doesn't play. So I quite like this as a performance effect. I'll show you what I mean. So the kick is doing quite a lot because I've got several different filters sidechain to it, such as this one here on the bass. So I'll show you with the kick, and I'll mute it, or rather I'll solo this, which will effectively mute the kick. So I'm effectively soloing this, which does not solo the MIDI channel, and the kick drops away, which affects quite obviously the bass. So. Okay, I thought I would add one more or a couple more tips. So one of them is I'm using these filters, which I got sidechained to, it's actually sidechained to the kick. This is on the bass channel. And so it's really doing a lot. It really adds this kind of darker, murky kind of sound, and overdriven as well, which I am quite enjoying. Anyway, I want to talk a little bit about the attack and release times on the envelope follower. So I started off by tuning it to ear, so just picking something that sounded nice, I thought, so dialing it in manually the way I thought it sounded good. And then I also did something extra, which is using this delay and reverb time calculator, which was probably the first one that comes up, and I'll put a link to it from anotherproducer.com. I'll put a link to it somewhere. I put the tempo in, and then I went looking for divisions that were similar to what I'd already chosen manually by ear. So I didn't go too far away from where I already had it set, but it should help make the envelope times a little more precise. This is not something I always do, but I thought I'd try it out, and it seemed to work nicely in terms of keeping the bass moving nicely in time in relation to the tempo. The other thing I wanted to talk about, these envelope followers, which I'm also using on various tracks. I've got one here on the bass. And so it is affecting the drive and the dry wet. The envelope follower, I believe, is in the standard version of Live, not the not intro. But it's very handy. It adds some motion, based on the envelope, what's coming in. So it's a subtle thing, but it adds motion, which is always nice when you've got things side-chained. Yeah. Okay, I thought I would talk about the arrangement. So essentially what I did is I created variations using the clips, playing around with ideas and finding some that I liked, and then you Command-Shift-I to insert or create and insert a new scene. So these are the scenes over here on the right. And then Command-Shift-I creates a new scene from the currently playing clips. So I did all that to create these scenes with the idea that I wanted to have a kind of forward to the floor intro, then some variations, then go into the wonky part, and then I kind of went backwards. So I went ascending and then kind of went backwards. And then using our MIDI controller, I used that in the arrangement and I recorded something that came out. It's really long at the moment. It's about 12 minutes. It's way too long. I will edit it down. I already have a bit. Probably it will start from around here somewhere. Yeah, anyway, I will bounce it down and I'll play around, listen to it a bit and put it in my DJ sets and decide what I want to change. But that is basically it. So, and then I put these markers in afterwards. So the markers did not go in beforehand. I basically jammed it out using the various scenes and then the MIDI controller to give it motion, and the markers went in afterwards. Right click, add locator. So I'll play you a little bit, but not all of it. Let's say from here. Okay, so I'm going to end this video here as it's getting a bit long. I will probably finish this piece of music and continue mixing it and fine-tuning the arrangement. And I'm curious to see what it ends up as. I will play it in some of my DJ sets and see how it sounds on a bigger system. I suspect right now there's probably way too much bass, so I'll have to work on the mix, I imagine. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed the video. I hope you've learned something from it. I've got a few more that are almost ready to go, so stay tuned for them regarding setting up the studio, which I thought might be interesting. So until next time, ciao.